folks, and welcome back to another episode of Pinal Prep Spotlight, brought to you by 911 Air Repair, your local air conditioning expert specializing in maintenance, repair, and new installations. We are officially in a playoff postseason mode here at Pinal Central. Very exciting time for us, simply because we had a new wrinkle when it comes to playoffs. We are talking about the small school open, 3A to 1A in... I think it's all sports, but we're just focusing on basketball for this case. Looking at the boys, boys are the only ones that made it into the open. We have three teams that are in action. We're in action, depending on, by the time you guys see this, everything will have passed. So teams that were in action on Tuesday, Coolidge, Florence, and ALA Ironwood, because this is happening early on in the week, we're just kind of going to talk about how they got here and how it was that they were able to make it into this open division. And first of all, looking at number 16 seed Coolidge, a lot of people might be scratching their heads about how Coolidge made it into the open division. Dave Glasgow is one of those guys. He's been surprised by his team. They have kind of gone through a restructuring of sort for their roster halfway through the season. They started off the season, one guy, it's like, okay, he's our go-to. This is who we're going to focus on. He's going to be our main guy offensively and everything, just leading the team. And then halfway through over winter break, that guy is gone. So then Coolidge had to readjust and figure out, okay, what are we going to do? Who's going to fill in for that gap? And they've done a pretty good job. All these different guys have collectively come in to fill in that gap. And David, just what else can you say about this Coolidge team?
This Coolidge team continues to show why they're one of the best teams in Pinal County, regardless of the circumstances. We've seen it so many years past where this team has had, guys come in, come out, kind of plugged in, plugged out, but now it's still the same thing. Still, the story stays the same. Coolidge continues to have just this level of excellence that kind of sets a bar for themselves, and it's playoffs or bust for them, and it's even more into the playoffs or bust, especially after a few years ago when they were, looking to win a state championship and get to that point, but they came up just short. So the idea still stays the same for them, and it's really, like you mentioned, the plug-and-play guys. One of the guys they found is Preston Dees. He's been a really solid player for them, leading the team in scoring. He's kind of been that guy that has taken over this team as the go-to guy, and it's really the rest of the team just knows their roles. I think that's one of the things that Dave Glasgow is really good at. He is good at showing guys what their role is and not deviating from that path and continuing to just believe in themselves and also just kind of having this level of excellence and this expectation that they're going to do great. Now in this game, they're going up against Valley Christian, which was their foe when they went to the state championship, and I believe it was 2022. This is a really good rivalry here. It's been a really fun time seeing both these teams kind of go at it. We've seen one team succeed, we've seen the other kind of get their revenge a little bit, so it's always going to be a fun and exciting game when these two teams lock up. So I'm expecting another one here, and I think this team just kind of it's going to be an interesting wrinkle when it comes to the Copper State region or Copper State bracket, because we really don't know what's going to happen here. We're not sure what to expect, but whatever happens, we're going to expect some good games here. And even if Coolidge may not make it through the rest of the round, they still have the 3A bracket that they're going to go through, and they're going to be a serious force in that one as well.
So David brought this up, Coolidge's first game in the Open, possibly the only game, let's be honest here. They're going up against the number one seed. Honestly, I'm happy there's an Open because it gets Valley Christian out of the 3A conference and gives other teams a chance. But hey, at this point, just get Valley Christian the trophy, because I mean, they're going to run away with it. Coolidge already played them in the regular season. Both games they lost by almost 50 points. I mean, is there anybody really who's capable of competing with these guys? Valley Christian, only one loss. That came to a school in Colorado. Honestly, I think we should move on and just kind of combine like the top schools in all the conferences, because I think Valley Christian can really compete with those 4A, 5A, 6A schools and give them a run for their money. But that's besides the point here. Moving on to our other team in the Open, number 15, ALA Ironwood. This team, unlike Coolidge and Florence, they are a recently established program who is making a name for itself. They've gone through a couple of head coaches, but they've done a really solid job of just continuing on and building off of previous year's success. David, how did the Warriors get up to this point?
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, it's a newly found success for ALA Ironwood in the last few years. It really started 3 years ago when they were, 2 years ago again, I was right, when they went to the Final Four. They went to the Final Four again last year, and this is actually an interesting point because this is kind of the weakest teams of the past 3 years, because they had really good guys kind of come in and be the to be the guys that we know they can be. Corey Wood was the guy 2 years ago. It was Chad Copeland last year. And now it's going to be a guy like Noah Atkins, who's done a really solid job for them. So it's just kind of finding the right guy that's going to take the next level. But the interesting thing with this team is that they used to rely on their bigs a lot and rely on their wings. Now they're relying on their point guard in Atkins. He's kind of the guy that kind of leads this team and moves forward. They don't have necessarily the size that they've had in recent years, which kind of marks why they haven't necessarily had the same success that we've seen, but this is still a really dangerous team and a really solid group that needs to be looked out for. And it's just continuing to find ways to win. I think they're really kind of honing in on what works for them and what doesn't. I think Atkins is one of the best shooters in the Pinal County and maybe even 3A. I think he's definitely a guy that we need to continue to pay attention to. It's his last year. It's his senior year. He wants to go out with a bang here. They've had new guys come in and take over, like Blake Anderson, who's been a really solid piece for them. So it's just going to come down to, can they perform when it happens. And again, like Coolidge, we don't know what's going to happen in this Copper State bracket. So it really just comes down to, can they continue to play their game. Last time they played Benjamin Franklin, they only lost by 2 points. Benjamin Franklin's going to be a really tough team and going to be a really solid group that we're going to have to look out for as well. So I expect Alien Iowa to put up a good fight and just continue to try to finally reach that pedestal they haven't. They've made it to the Final Four the last 2 years, but now it's time to really capitalize and at least make a finals appearance. I think that is their goal and ultimately what they hope to achieve.
Again, got to reiterate, all these games right now, they have already passed by the time you guys are saying this. So looking ahead, our last team in the Open is number 9, Florence. And I feel like out of these 3 teams, Florence might be the best we have in Pinal County. And a big reason for that are kind of their big 3 here in Brody Ramirez, Logan Stenson, and Adrian Talfa Asal. These guys have... When all 3 of these guys are locked in, Florence is a very dangerous team. If these guys have an off night, it's going to be a long night for this Gophers team. David, what else can you say about this team?
This Florence team is, I think, my pick this year. I really like them, and I really like what they've done. When I talked to David Silvas before the beginning of the season, he told me that he doesn't want to feel added pressure this year, but there is, because this is a senior-heavy team. This group has so many guys that are not going to be here next year, and this kind of feels like the year they have to get it done. And they've gotten it done in the regular season. They've had a really solid year. They've had some really good games against some really tough opponents. Teams we've already mentioned, guys like Coolidge and A.L.A. Ironwood. These teams are going to continue to see each other no matter what. And Florence really feels like this is their year. This is their year to kind of finally stamp themselves. And we've seen it before where they've kind of had some trouble in the early rounds, and then when it gets to maybe quarterfinals or semis, they're still just not really there yet. But I think this is the year that we're going to finally see everything come together, and things are going to finally blossom the way they want to, and what they want to achieve. So I really like this Florence team here. This is personally my pick to see this team go really far, whether it be the Copper State bracket or just the 3A state championship. I really like this team, and I think they're going to be a serious dangerous threat in the rest of this tournament.
As David mentioned, the bright side for all three of these teams is if they happen to lose in this first round of the Open Division, hey, they get to go back to their 3A conference tournament. And that's where I feel like any of these 3 teams can really make a run for it. Like I mentioned, Valley Christian is out of it. So I feel like the door is wide open for anybody at this point. Moving on to the matchups that we do know, starting off with our Thursday game in the girls' bracket for 3A. It is number 24, Benjamin Franklin, at number 11, Coolidge. And I'll just say this. I feel like Coolidge got robbed here. Coolidge defeated Tucson Push Ridge, Valley Christian, and Kayenta Monument Valley. All of these teams made it into the Open, yet Coolidge, I think maybe once moved up from that number 11 spot. So I think, hey, this is a really good this can really fuel this Coolidge team if they use it correctly, coming in with a chip on their shoulder because, hey, they deserve to be in this Open division, but yet they are not. And just a lot of things really clicking for them. We got to talk about their big 3 in the White sisters, Alasia and Alana, as well as Naylissa Charles. We've talked about Alasia White just basically nonstop if you follow us along at Pinal Central, and rightfully so. Because overall, I think when it comes to basketball, just Pinal County-wise, I think Alasia White is the best player, boys or girls, just because what she can contribute to this Coolidge team, offensively, defensively, just she is the whole package. David, what can you say about this matchup or just about Coolidge in general?
pretty much everything you just said. This team is really good, and I think I agree with you in that point where, White has been just a solid contributor and just been an absolute perfect team, perfect player for this team, averaging 18 points a game. She does everything for them. She's averaging a double-double with 12 rebounds as well, and she's just a really solid player that is going to be a force in this tournament. And like you mentioned, I think they got robbed as well. I think they should definitely have been given their flowers, but who knows how AAA makes their decisions. Coolidge is not going to be slept on. They're going to use that as a chip on their shoulder. They're going to use that as motivation, and they're going to be a serious force in this tournament. And I expect them to just continue to, just beat up teams. And they're going to find some teams that are going to be tough, but I think that they have so much confidence in themselves and their abilities and what they have here. And I think that they're just going to be a force to be reckoned with, and we're going to be talking about them for a little bit longer because they're not going away anytime soon.
And our last team going over to the boys, this is all pool play in the 3A state tournament. It is number 23 Santan Foothills at number 12 Snowflake. This is a Friday game, and I feel like Santan Foothills kind of snuck up on here with some people. Like we mentioned, hey, a couple of these teams go off into the open, so that opens some spots in the conference tournament. And David, what can you just say about the Sabre Cats team?
Santan Foothills has always been the team that is just around. The Coolidge, ALA Ironwood, Florence, they're always going to take the top billing, but then Santan Foothills deserves their flowers as well. This is a really solid group and a really solid program. They've done a really good job of kind of building this team up, and they always find a way to get to this position and at least get close to a playoffs and get close to competing for something, and it's a testament to what this team has. And a guy like Julius Carlisle, who is only a sophomore, leading the team in points with 14 a game, that is a guy that there's going to continue to feed this team into the future. I don't know really what to expect with him this year, but with a guy like Carlisle who is going to be here for continuous years, for the next few years, we're going to see him in a Santan Foothills uniform. I think he's going to be something we have to pay attention to, and I think Santan Foothills is definitely not done. Depending on whatever happens this year, I think we're going to continue to look at them and continue to see them continue to fight and can get to these points no matter what.
And that does it for our episode. We will try our best to tackle everything going on this weekend, just a lot of days. We also have a couple of soccer teams in action. Got to give them a quick shout out. On the girls' side, Apache Junction, LA Ironwood, Florence, they are all competing in the 3A state tournament. For the boys, it's LA Ironwood, and then we have a couple teams in the play-in. Boys, Combs, Maricopa, and girls, CG Union. Like I mentioned, we're going to try to tackle as much as we can, so follow along for this crazy ride.